Okay, welcome. Welcome. It's time and place set forth for the October 2nd, 2024 Boise Airport Commission meeting. So we'll get started at 9:01 with roll call, please.
Here. Commissioner Carlson,
Yes, here.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Here.
Commissioner Donlin, Commissioner Morales, Commissioner Vasconcellos,
Here.
Commissioner Westerberg,
Here.
Commissioner Westergaard.
Here.
You're Sunday.
It's like Western. Okay, so item 2 on the agenda is the minutes that we have before us, the minutes from September 4th, 2024. Are there any corrections? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
And move that we approve those minutes. A second.
For discussion, motion carried. Oh, both.
You have to say all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All of them.
All opposed? Motion carries. Maybe. It's
Okay.
okay.
Yes, okay.
Okay, the third item on the agenda is unfinished business, and it looks like there's no unfinished business, so we'll move on to the fourth item, which are reports. And we'll hear from Airport Director.
Well, good morning, members of the commission. Thank you for being here this morning. Happy fall. It doesn't seem possible that it is fall already, but it is. So we do have a short presentation to share with you this morning, just to give you an update on some of the things that are happening around the airport. I'm going to start with some of our construction items and our capital projects. Before we do that, I might want to just recognize that we have a new old airport commissioner. A new former, I shouldn't say old, sorry, Russ. A former airport commissioner who's joining us again, and Commissioner Russ Westerberg, who was with us for, I don't know how many years you were on the commission previously, 14, I was gonna say longer than I've been here. And
But old is the right adjective.
and welcome back, Russ. We're glad to have you back. Russ is replacing former Commissioner Garrett Nancolis, who unfortunately had to resign for personal reasons from the commission. So Russ, thank you for being back here, and I'm sure we'll give you a chance to say a few words during commissioner's comments. Be good to have you back. So, sorry, I deviated for a moment, but continuing on with the director's report, we do continue progress on our capital program. The largest project, I think, arguably, that we have going on, particularly on land side, is the consolidated rental car facility. You can see that we are moving on to level 2, and then the customer service building foundations have also been completed. And then we are working on the foundations for the ramps, the garage. Just a reminder, that's scheduled for spring of 26. So it's a very large project that will be taking place. And then we have our taxiway Delta relocation and our aircraft rescue and firefighting access road construction. This is a multi-phase project. We're expecting the phase 5 will begin on October 7th. During this time, the runway is closed because we're operating in the safety areas. And we're expecting that this project will be done in early November before snow season. Taxi lane November, the extension, we just started that at the end of September. This construction will also last through November. And this will allow for future access over for some GA hangars that are yet to be built. But this is over, it's actually down near Customs, which we'll hear from Customs and Border Protection a little bit later. It's going down in that direction, but over by our airfield maintenance building, there'll be some new corporate hangar access over there. Exciting developments on our concourse development and terminal improvements. As you all know, we hired Fentress Architect. They're continuing to work on the first couple task orders that we have given them, which are the baggage handling system, and then developing the forecast. So hopefully at a future point in time, we'll be able to present those findings and those results to in future airport commission meeting. We also hired Jacobs Project Management to be our owner's representative. The role of that group is to really help the airport organize and execute these projects because they are very substantial. They work with airports all over the country to help execute that, combined with the number of specialty staffs that they have. We think that's going to be a really good fit. It was on council agenda and passed last night. So the next thing on our schedule will be actually hiring the construction manager at risk. And so we're not ready to build yet, but we do want to bring them on early in the process because that's when you get the most value as you're going through the design, is to have their input during that phase. So that will be up next, we're hoping this fall. We've talked quite a bit about our cell phone waiting area and relocating that. We are starting an awareness campaign that will start on October 7th. And we're expecting that the new lot will be open by October 15th. As you know, if you've ever been in here to pick up a passenger at 11 o'clock at night, the existing cell phone waiting lane is not sufficient. And this will provide substantially more parking for that, about very conveniently located 5 to 6 minutes away. So we're also installing some preconditioned air units. This is a grant program that helps reduce air emissions, and it's called the Voluntary Airport Low Emissions. We're replacing some fuel-powered units that are reaching the end of their lives with electrified units because they'll be cleaner energy, and then it helps us, obviously help us maintain our air quality in the region. Last month, when we were here, I presented on our strategic planning session that we've been doing as an airport. And we had about 40 of our airport leaders, so managers, key contributors, all got together to review our strategic plan, identify priorities, and really talk about how the daily work impacts the plan and how the plan impacts the daily work. I think it was very well received by our team. It was a substantial investment in time, but I do think that it was very worthwhile and well received. I did want to mention, we did have a zoning thing that went before City Council that was for zoning within the airport influence area. The City Council on a 3-2 vote did approve 174 apartments over on Maple Grove. It is in an activity area. It's outside of our noise exposure model contours, which change over time, but it is in the airport influence area. So we'll be working on looking at zoning and where zoning and the airport and then the need for housing, where they meet and where there's some overlap and potentially some opportunity to modify zoning to allow for more housing in places where it's appropriate. So we'll be working on that.
Madam Chair. Rebecca, I see the airport leadership spoke against the project. Can you?
Well, our concerns were that it didn't meet the criteria as outlined. So the zoning, as it was outlined, said 5 units per acre, and that a conditional use permit could be granted in this area. And again, it's based on the airport influence area and aircraft noise in that area. A conditional use permit means they can make changes. Our vision when we talked about a conditional use permit is that it would be a minor change. So for example, if someone had 5 acres and they could, do something creative with the layout or the road work that maybe it worked out to be 7 or 10 units per acre, that would be permissible. When we talked about conditional use permits, we did not envision 20 plus units per acre. So I think this actually pencils out to be 27 or 28 units per acre. So much greater density than had been envisioned in the airport influence area. And every time we make an exception to the rule, it becomes harder and harder to enforce the rule. And so that was the airport's position, was that we were weakening our case for future developments. Many of you had an opportunity to attend. We hosted our general aviation hangout. We do host a general aviation meeting at least once per year is our goal. We vary the format from time to time. This was the first time we've done an aviation hangout. I think that it was well received by our GA tenants. We had a number of staff there. We also had FAA there, state DOT, aeronautics was there as well. So it was well attended. And I do want to give a shout out. Ponderosa Aero Club turns trying to remember what your anniversary is. I can't do math this morning. 50. Thank you. 74. We're in 24. I've lost track of what year we're in. So we do have representatives. Jenna Whalen is here from Ponderosa Aero, and I did want to mention that they're doing some social media around their 50th anniversary here today. So Jamie our very own Commissioner Jamie Bosinger is a member of the Aero Club. And I have heard rumor that maybe that's where you learned to fly.
I instructed at Ponderosa and I got a couple of ratings there. So yes, we're all still learning to fly.
Yes. All right, so very exciting. Congratulations to them. We also hosted Idaho's first ever Girls in Aviation Day. We were a sponsor of that. We had over 100 girls attend, and we had several staff that participated in and showcased different career fields that are available to women in aviation, and that was sponsored by the Women in Aviation, the Idaho chapter. So we worked with them to sponsor that. Then next week, we'll be hosting the Northwest chapter of the American Association of Airport Executives meeting here in Boise. So we'll have airport executives from all over the region, as well as vendors, suppliers, and consultants that will be coming in to Boise. We expect to have about 300 attendees at the conference. We've been working on this for the past year. I want to give a shout out to our team who's been working on that. I think Jill has been our primary point of contact on organizing it. Jennifer has had a tremendous role as well, helping with some of the events and planning. So we're excited to host that next week. And then the moment we've all been waiting for, August passenger numbers continue to be up. They were up 6%. Compared to last year. Yes, that was my thought as well, Bill. So we're up 4% year to date. So we continue to trend ahead at this pace. I don't know that we'll reach 5 million, but it will be 5 million total passengers for the year, but it will be close. And then we continue to perform well from a financial perspective. Operating revenue continues to be up. This is the very last month of our fiscal year that you'll see, because this is the September numbers. As of October, we roll into our new fiscal year. So everything that I've been telling you all along about the impact on these numbers, it continues to stay the same. So that if you have questions, for example, the airline fees are up because of the renegotiated contracts. The same thing about landings. The concessions, all of those are up, one, because of increased travel and passengers, but also because of the relief grants that finally came in that were a result of COVID funding. When we look at the expenses, very much the same reasons that we've talked about before. When we talk about increases in fire and police, those are due to the renegotiated contracts. Same thing with fleet. Credit card fees continue to be up. And again, that's because of the increased volume of transactions that we're doing. So nothing unusual there. And with that, that concludes my report.
Can you talk a little bit about the airport influence area on the city council? And that it's subject to change?
So the airport influence area has not changed in over 40 years. So the noise exposure models, which are the modeling, which is the modeling that we do when we do an FAR Part 150 noise compatibility study, those change. And those, basically, that's a scientific measurement of the level of aircraft noise in different places across the city as a result of the airport being here. So they expand and contract based on the number of aircraft operations, the type of aircraft that are operating here. There's also a penalty for nighttime operations, so those get weighted heavier. So the noise exposure models expand and contract over time. But the airport influence area has been static. And so we're looking at, does it make sense to make a change to the influence area based on where the noise exposure models are? Recognizing that those can change.
And with bigger aircraft, I assume that eventually will come in based on the size of the airport, that noise influence will change as well.
Well, the aircraft engines are getting quieter. So you're seeing probably less impact from larger aircraft. I mean, obviously there are exceptions. Sometimes people find smaller aircraft more annoying because they're a little bit lower and closer depending on where they're flying. I think the big thing is frequency. And then also if we were to have military jets, so as you know, we're getting the F-16s in 2028, I believe. And so those will be substantially louder than the A-10, so the noise exposure model will change again, hence why we've left the airport influence area the way that it has been. But there may be some opportunities to make some modifications. And we're gonna look at zoning overall, because when the city implemented the new zoning code, they didn't specifically address the airport and zoning around the airport, which is, I think, very unique when you look at the rest of the city. And so, for example, BSU has its own zoning code. So there's this, a university zone, if you will. And so we think it might be appropriate to have an airport zone that addresses a number of the nuances that are unique and only really apply to the airport.
Is that noise data published?
The noise data is published. It's on our website and the FAR on our website under other, I think, or about the airport. You can find it there. And we can send a link as well if you would like.
Chair. Director Hunt, is there any new information we can share about the trouble at the hotel and airport?
I would just say that it's continuing. I would say, I'm trying to think of what I can say and what I can't say. Because there is potentially litigation pending. Should I just say nothing? Okay. The attorney is not even saying yes, he's just nodding. So, I think the safest thing to say is there's litigation pending. There's multiple issues related to the hotel, and perhaps we should add that as an item for executive session for our next meeting.
Any other questions for Director Hunt? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Go on to commissioner comments. We'll start with Commissioner Comment. I just promoted you.
You gave me a new title. Thank you. Last week I traveled to Mallorca, Spain, which is a beautiful island off the west coast of Spain. It was a United Lufthansa connections. Sadly, both the flight going over to Munich and Lufthansa and the flight coming home from Munich through Denver. Both aircraft had mechanical software glitches. And the average time to correct a software glitch on an airplane is about 40 or 45 minutes. So that meant I didn't make my connections on the other end for both times. So I had to stay at a Hampton Inn in Munich near the airport. Stayed at the Westin in Denver, which is right on property. It's very easy to do. But made me late. So that wasn't thrilled about that. But I did arrive home on Sunday morning, and on the first flight out of Denver, it was a smooth flight. It was pretty quiet in the airport on Sunday morning, actually. Not the busiest time, I think, for people to travel, but other than that, it was very uneventful. So always glad to be back home and have an easy re-entry into our beautiful city. Thank you.
Want to welcome Russ. Nice to have you back. It's always good to have a fellow pilot on board. Also wanted to thank the airport for sponsoring the Women in Aviation event. I was not there, I was out of town, but I heard it was very well received. It's nice to have the support from the airport sponsoring it. And then Ponderosa, it's so great to have you guys here and celebrate 50 years. That's pretty fantastic. It's really important to have a GA club on the field. We want to make sure that that stays that way and you guys keep growing, and it's a good, great, really good community of people to have. So thanks. Save mine till the end.
Madam Chair, I too would like to welcome back Commissioner Westerberg. The company I worked for was fortunate to be seated next to the airport's table at the Boise Metro Gala on Friday night. So it was nice to see the airport continue to support the chamber. And the only comment I have in reviewing the revenues and expenses, I couldn't help but notice the parking revenues that are generated here. But I know there's reasons for that, with the expansion, but coupled with that was the reduction in expense, the change in parking management. Just terrific to see such an increase in revenue and a decrease on the expense side. So I commend all those that were involved with that decision.
We're really excited and we've been very pleased with the level of service as well. I think that the level of service from the parking company has actually improved as well. So it's a good move.
And that's the car park, right?
Yes, the car park, a local company, a Boise-based company.
Commissioner Westerberg.
Well, thank you. Chairman. Give you kind of a quick overview. Boise Airport has always been a big part of my life, so it's enjoyable to be back on the commission and getting something back to the airport. About 33 years ago, I learned to fly at this airport, much different than it is now. And during those 33 years, I've owned about 10 or 11 different airplanes, flown them out of Boise, kept them hangared here with someone, used to be MK, was a full service FBO in those days. They changed, then was Western Aircraft. At one point in time, I was even at Canyon Aviation, where Ponderosa operates out of. And I was fortunate enough about 20 years ago to get a city hangar, where I've been ever since. So during that time, my focus, because of my interest in aviation and being involved in it, with the Airport Commission, is primarily focused on the airfield side of the airport, where the runways are, the taxiways, the FBOs. That's been my major focus, and I've always been pleased with what I've been able to see there. That, it's kind of changed now, and I'm gonna join those of you that are kind of pay attention to what goes on in the terminal. I'm gonna kind of be watching to see what kind of handicap access we have nowadays. But it's always been a pleasure. I would add one note that I was on the commission that interviewed Rebecca for the job she has now, and I was pleased to be on the commission that recommended to the mayor then, Governor or Mayor Beater, that he hired. And I think we made the right decision then, and everything I've seen since confirms that we did make the right decision. So anyway, I enjoy being back. I hope to add something to this process, but I'm very pleased with what I see thus far, and I'll enjoy these meetings.
And I'd like to welcome you back, Russ. I always found that Russ had some really good input when we were on the commission together for a number of years. So I'm glad to see you back, and I certainly agree with your comments about the mayor's decision to hire Rebecca. Personally, I will be flying out really early tomorrow morning for a UBS trip, UBS conference in the Denver area, and then coming back Friday afternoon. So it'll be a quick trip on United. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully better than your experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I too would love to welcome Commissioner Westerberg. I'm sure we'll learn a lot from you and having you here. Welcome. I did get a chance to meet Commissioner at the General Aviation reception, which I really enjoyed. I liked meeting all the different clubs and hearing that Ponderosa just is celebrating their 50-year anniversary. I think that's a huge deal, and all the pilots that have come before and will come after, including our very own Jamie. So Huge accomplishment, and I'm glad you're here. I have been flying a little. I went to Mississippi. We have a son at Old Miss, so I did go to Mississippi. That was great flight, but I will say that my partner made it through a regular, he got through faster than TSA. When I got
That's a
through
pre-check.
I had pre-check and he didn't, and he was on the other side. I was like, how does this work? I think there's so many people taking advantage of TSA and Clear now. It's great. It's still fast, but that's really fast on the other side as well. And then I just got back last night from Spokane, the 1-minute flight, going. I love that. And then coming, it was very smooth. So, that's all I have, but, so with that, we'll move on to, we have this, looks like we have an airport staff report. For Rural Customs and Border Protection.
Excellent. Well, I'm gonna turn this over to our port director, Rachel. And I'm not even gonna try and say your name. I've known you for 12 years and I still can't say your last name. Ruds. Scargolino.
Red Scarglino. Just really quick, about myself, some of you I've seen for a while. I've presented like 2016, I think, when Rebecca had me do this last time. So it's been a minute. My name is Rachel Red Scarglino. I'm the port director for Customs and Border Protection here locally, the Boise Airport. I have been here since 2003. So, love it. Was in northern Minnesota, Anchorage, Alaska, Vancouver pre-clearance, and then came to Boise. And my husband grew up here. We made this our home and love it. So we're gonna go through, I gotta say, typical government thing. We gotta give you the big picture, and then we'll kind of bring it back down to local for you. Okay, so September 11th, 2001, transformed Customs and Border Protection, created us. Oops, it's just that slow. Whoops, sorry. Here we go. Becca, maybe you shouldn't have given me this. Okay, so early beginnings, we had immigration, we had customs, we had agriculture, and then we merged us all together to create one happy family in 2003. Who are we? CBP is a multifaceted agency. We have a lot of people say customs and we'll call us Border Patrol. We're the blue side, air side, green side, internal. And then we have our khakis, which are the air and marine folks. Our responsibilities, securing the border, moving commerce, keeping freight going, and then stopping what shouldn't come in. Like we said, we have Border Patrol, field operations, and air and marine. Basically, blue side is who you deal with when you come back into the country. Probably is the easiest way to say it. Border Patrol, the green side, those are the folks that you're already in the interior of the United States. That's where their authority lies. And then we have our aviation group, which is air and marine. Kind of gives you a footprint of where we are. We have several, like I talked about, I was in Vancouver pre-clearance. We have several pre-clearance places. That's where you get to clear through customs prior to coming into the US. And then you get to Portland or Seattle, Salt Lake, and then you're home, you're domestic, you just go on your way. Those countries actually pay to have the CBP officer to try to expedite flights when you come back into the US. This is nationwide typical day. 868,000 passengers and pedestrians are processed through CBP, including air travel, boats, land borders, private vehicles, sea containers, and there's about 107,000 entries of merchandise nationwide that are processed by CBP offices. 2022, 306 million in duties and taxes and more than 280 million in duties that we've collected nationwide. Apprehensions at between the ports of entries, that would be the Border Patrol side of it, and then 41 arrests of wanted criminals at the ports of entry prior to coming into the United States. agriculture, also another important part of our world. They protect from pests, food items, things that shouldn't come into the US on that side of it. Almost 3,000 pounds of drugs seized in a day and 217,000 in illicit currency. And 8 million in intellectual property rights. I was in Anchorage. That was a big thing from China, seizing the items that were counterfeit and stopping them from coming into the US. The trademark holder registers with us, teaches us how to determine what makes that item counterfeit. And then we can seize it and protect. When I was in Anchorage back in the day, Beanie Babies. Remember Beanie Babies back in the day, right? So China was making Beanie Babies. They weren't made by Thai. And so basically Thai said, these are the safety features, right? Because we don't want those Beanie Babies with our kids because the eyes pop off or the tag comes off they can swallow it, things like that. So they would come and give training so we could seize the items and protect the commerce and the folks from getting those counterfeit items. Kind of gives you a little snapshot picture of how many officers are within CBP nationwide, the biggest federal agency.
So that doesn't include TSA, right?
No, sir, does not include TSA. No, this is just Customs and Border Protection. So we operate in 22 countries, internationally, 328 ports of entries within field offices. So, yep. We're a little bit of all over the place. Okay, so now we get into Boise a little bit. So we have one general aviation facility. We have one foreign trade zone, which is up north that qualified under a northern one. We don't, yeah. It's up there. We don't see it. So. Okay, this map kind of gives you, these are the field offices and kind of where we're at. We fall under the Portland field office and then the San Francisco field office prior to hitting headquarters. So, and you can kind of see on the Idaho map, there's that little jog. So my office is responsible from Lewiston through the rest of Idaho to include to Utah yeah. So we are responsible for any aircraft that are going to leave the airports out of there or possibly want to come in there or come in there when they're not supposed to. My office handles Lewiston down. Okay, so some of our numbers. We have done over 520 aircraft this fiscal year alone. That's in over 3,000 passengers and 531 entries for a nice little chunk of change there. With those 520 aircraft, we get the occasional, I don't know if everybody heard about it, but the Air Canada divert that we dealt with. That is I think Rebecca and I talked about it. That's the perfect example of the partnership and the relationship that we have between Boise Police, the Boise Airport, and how easy we made it look when it really wasn't. My first phone call was from Alex. And fortunately for us, we had some folks from Portland training. So it was perfect storm. It worked out well for us. But it was really nice when we've had some other diverts. We had custodial staff helping us put up stanchions. We had BPD helping us. We had operations helping us. We had basically anything we needed to process these 140 some passengers. It was like you opened the curtains and the production just started. Like there was a lot of lifting, but it didn't appear to be as much of an effort as it could have been, because we've got a plan, we've got it made, and everybody works together. What can I do to help? What do you need? And we processed those folks considering everybody had to be processed because that flight was never intending to land in the United States. So we had 24 people that had no US documents that we had to process. So without that partnership of everybody, it would not have went off nearly as successful as it did.
Maybe a silly question, but what do you mean by processed? in,
So the best way, I guess, to describe it is, so have you flown out of the country before? No, okay. So, you come off your plane. Maybe we should at some point, maybe bring them down, do a field trip to our office. But basically, we have a couple different options to process you. Basically, we'll pretend this podium, I have a podium with a computer, you walk up to me, I take your picture, I process you, what are you bringing back, where are you coming from, how long have you been gone, what was the purpose of your trip? And then when I'm done with you and I say, have a nice day, then you can leave and you've been processed. Or technology now, I can take out my phone, take a picture of you, and it will match you that way. So we have to process you, so we have to know who's coming into the into the United States, but yeah. Okay. We did a little graph, kind of shows you, where, FY 21 to today, we're staying pretty high with over 500. We're at our second year in a row of over 500 aircraft for the year, which most aircraft are not staying in Boise. They're coming from Calgary, that area, they're clearing and they're going on to, they'll stop, they'll fuel. Or just clear with us, and then they're going to California, they're going to Nevada, they're going to Utah, they're going to wherever, but they can clear they like to come to Boise because it's easy to land, it's easy to clear, and it's easy to get back on their way and go. And it's about halfway for them. The other thing that we do in our office is global entry. Global entry is a process where you apply online, you come to our office and do an interview. And then when you come back into the United States, you can use a kiosk, or we have now just created a mobile app that you can download the mobile app, take a picture of yourself, and it will give you a receipt and tell you you have 20 minutes to leave. That basically your receipt is good for 20 minutes. Our office is a small office, and we have processed over 2,000 interviews this past fiscal year. Any other questions for me? Now, I do want to add one thing. We did recently start kind of a cool process. A cool thing is we started a RSP program, a reimbursable services program. So for aircraft coming in, I don't have to have a budget anymore. Like, I don't have to have an overtime budget. We pass that overtime cost to have an officer come in and clear to the aircraft. And so that, I think, helps us with our numbers and our ability to process more aircraft because I don't have to have an overtime budget. So it's kind of nice.
I have one question.
Uh-huh.
for you. When you clear you said 2,000, well, maybe I'm mixing the numbers up.
Okay.
When you clear aircrafts coming in and moving on to another destination, are those mostly private?
Those are mostly private. They're usually, our average flight is, has about 8 to 14 people on it. We've done the Arizona Coyotes, the hockey team came in from Vancouver. We've done that. We do the military flights, but as a rule, general aviation or a small charter, medevac. But it's usually between, I would say, 8 and 14 people that we clear at a time, so.
That's really interesting. We would love a field trip.
What's the global entry app called?
It's global, it's the mobile global entry. Mobile global entry, yep. And you can do up to 11 people in your party. We had some friends that did it, and he and his wife, he took his picture, her picture, and they said that was basically the only reason they made their connection. So it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, moving on to, this is the point where we have questions and comments. The general public, you have 5 minutes to ask any questions. Would you like to?
I would like to, but I think that's. Hi, good morning. I'm Mark Christiansen. I live in Middleton, Idaho. And it's my first appearance here. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about me, not for the purpose of being not that way. but to lend to two things that I'll say at the end, credibility to those things. I serve on the Middleton City Council right now. I know that Natalie from Nampa has been serving, I don't know if she was on the commission or attending in behalf of Nampa, but she's a friend of mine. That's how I got associated here. But I retired from Horizon Air, Alaska Airlines in 2016. I'm not sure if you were here then or not. But I was director of the SOC at that time for Horizon Air, and has a lot of dealings with the airport here, as well as many, many airports in the US and even our friends to the north and south. And I'm a pilot. I'm just a, beat around town kind of pilot. My son's a pilot for Alaska Airlines. He's a 737 jockey. And I just wanted to share some of those. I've got a lot of other things in my background that might be interesting, but I say those things for a couple of reasons. First is, in my capacities, if anything I can do to assist the commission or the airport, and would love to serve in whatever. But the biggest reason I wanted to stand here today is to tell you, in my experience, I've traveled and visited airport directors and airport. I've been involved deeply with promoting Horizon, promoting Alaska, being representatives of us to them. But in the process, we've learned a lot about the airports themselves. I'd like to share with you, we have a golden nugget here. And I appreciate the work that all of you have done to make it that way. I want to keep it a secret. When I see these numbers, it's not happening. But the work you've all done makes it different. And let me tell you a couple of things. From a customer perspective, somebody traveling through Boise or going through the TSA lines, what's remarkable is the culture here. You may not see it as much unless you travel a lot, but I know from my little resume in the beginning, I've visited many, many airports, and I can tell you that you're one of a kind. Even the TSA, I know the CBP, I didn't have as much involvement with them, but TSA, and you actually go through TSA's lines. They treat you with respect, yet they do their job very effectively. Whereas in other places, it's not that way. The people at the counters, the people at the gates, the people administratively have always treated us with great respect, and we appreciate that. So it makes the customer experience really pleasant. I think a lot of that has to do with the decisions that you make. And thank you so much for doing that, because you do stand out. The people that travel a lot know that. And it is something that we really not want to have change. So thank you, and I appreciate that. My little claim to fame was on September 11th, in my capacities, we would travel back to Herndon, Virginia, the command center back there. And on the morning of September 11th, I was there for a training class. And I'll just say, I'll make it brief. It was we were right in the middle of where a lot of these decisions were made. Didn't know it at the time. But what an odyssey trying to get home was another story in itself. But I love aviation. I love the interactions. I love flying. We didn't make any money in the airline business, but we did learn a lot and gain a lot. So enough said. I'm sorry you've taken so much time, but thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
Hannah, do you want to speak on behalf of Ponderosa Aero? Maybe to say a few words about your 50th anniversary?
So I'm Jenna Wayland, if any of you know me, and if Jake knows me, Rebecca knows me. I've been with the club for about 5 years now. I absolutely love the club. Just to start out, I started there just as a member wanting to fly, got hired, and I've been promoted and promoted and promoted. But if you're not familiar with Ponderosa Aero Club, we are over on the south side of the airport. We're a nonprofit flying club. We offer flight instruction from your PPL all the way up to soon to be your multi-engine rating. If it weren't for you guys here and the Boise Airport's help, we wouldn't be the best that we are today. Boise Airport is where Ponderosa belongs. And for vast majority, we started at Strawberry Glen. But vast majority, we've been here and it has been amazing. We have produced some of the best pilots, in my opinion, that work in the terminal are sitting in front of me today over at Jackson Jet Center, Western, Turbo, over at the Division of Aeronautics, everywhere. Just ask around, you'll hear plenty of people say, oh yeah, I fly Ponderosa. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope for another 50 years over at the Boise Airport.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not,
Madam Chair, Rebecca, is there a comment about these lovely swag caps that are sitting?
Yes, these lovely swag caps are courtesy of our amazing team who put together the GA hangout event. We handed these out for some of our tenants, and so we thought our commissioners might like to have them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering. Appreciate you.
Okay, so we have concluded all business on the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn the October 2nd meeting of the Boise Airport Commission.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.